Good evening, welcome to another edition of the Gersnet Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast by fans for fans, where all the content is absolutely free. Coming to you in association with Forrest Precision Engineering. I'm your host tonight, Ryan Archer, and as always we would encourage you to get onto the Gersnet website and check out our forums for all your latest Rangers news and discussions. We're live tonight on the YouTube channel, and we would ask that you continue to share the pod on social media, spread the word, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Before I introduce my guest for tonight, I need to give another mention to our partners over at Forrest Precision Engineering, a Glasgow-based engineering company who have been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for a number of years, and we're delighted to have them supporting the pod. If you want more information about them, please visit their website at www.forestprecisioneng.com. They also have a stunning executive lounge in the Ibrox main stand, and for more information on that, email the club at hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Right, now to bring in my guest for tonight. Joining me tonight is Stewart Weir. Stewart, how are you doing?
Good evening, Brian. Yes, doing very well.
Good. We'll kick off with a review of the Kamala game on Wednesday night. Sure. First thing I wanted to get your thoughts on was the team selection. Now, there are a few changes, and we've kind of come to expect this from the manager. But Barisic, Silva, and McCausland all coming in, and Ridvan, Dessers, and Sterling out. Now, before we go on to discuss individual performances of players, were you surprised by that selection?
Not really, because I think you've reached a time in the stage, the season where trying to guess or second guess who a manager will select it becomes rather difficult. He is obviously looking at the best possible team he can put out, whilst also taking into account other matches that Rangers are going to be playing in the very near future. And whilst it would be great to turn out the same players, week in, week out, that you can't even do that on FIFA 24, let alone do it in real life in the SPFL. So I think he has to pick teams, sort of horses for courses, so to speak, that he thinks he's going to get a shift out of without actually weakening the Rangers' cause in any way, shape or form.
And he's quite open about the fact that he'll rotate his squad, which not a lot of managers are, but he's quite kind of comfortable coming out in the press conferences and, just saying that, we'll rotate the squad, and a lot of managers they're not as open like that.
Yeah, I mean, he knows what his best team is. Therefore, he has to look at the players that he has available to him at any given point in time and say who needs a rest here or who mightn't a rest. And it's fine if you ask a footballer, can you play this match or can you go for another game? They will say yes. No footballer ever says no. I'm struggling fitness wise, or I'm a bit fatigued or a bit tired. They will play. However, that might not always be what the team is needing. The team is needing 100%, and maybe even a bit more from every player. Hence the reason why the manager will spend so long over his team selections. Hence the reason why you get changes. And I know people say that the Rangers squad has a bit of depth to it. The fact of the matter is that if you make a couple of changes, you start to see maybe one or two sort of holes in that squad. When you start making 3 and 4, and yet then add in substitutes and the likes, it doesn't look as strong or as capable as it does if you're just picking your starting 11. So I think he's been very good, and you're right, he is open about the changes he makes, but he's only been open about the changes he makes because he's trying to prepare people for other matches that are about to come round, and there will be further changes.
Yeah, it's interesting to see if that kind of continues going forward. I do expect that he does seem a manager that's, as I say, more than willing to rotate his squad. So I suppose that can only be a good thing in terms of he'll always want a strong squad, and he'll always kind of make sure that he's got players that he trusts rather than having players that he doesn't really fancy. One of the first players I wanted to take him on to it was Borna Barisic, who, as I said, came in for the game at Rugby Park. It was his mistake that ultimately led to the penalty being given. I'm not really sure what he was trying to do. He was kind of went down, claiming a foul, but then in the act of going down, handled the ball, which gave away a free kick that then ultimately led to the ball coming into the box, and kind of Lundstrom giving away the handball. Before we get on to the handball, we've seen numerous similar errors from Barisic in the past. Was this one too many for you?
A couple of weeks ago, I likened Barisic to Stuart Monroe, that despite the mistakes and the errors and the knocks and the bumps that they take, they keep getting back. But I have to say, your description there of not being quite sure what he was trying to do. The last time I saw a fullback slide like that to take or keep possession of the ball, I think it was probably Gavin Hastings at Murrayfield, when he had the whole of the All Blacks chasing him towards his own goal line. I've never really seen anything quite like it before. And it was an error that was compounded ultimately by the fact that Rangers then gave away a penalty. I don't think even Barisic, if he'd sat him down and said, "What were you trying to do there?" I don't think I'd have given you an answer that would have, that would have stood up a court of law. It was a real blunder, a real error, and as I say, compounded by the time that Rangers gave a penalty away.
Yeah, on to the penalty now. For me, I still can't quite work out if I think this was a penalty or it wasn't. I've kind of settled on the fact that by the letter of the current law, it probably was the correct decision. But for you, did this just serve to highlight the inconsistency in terms of how that law has been applied when you look at other potential handball claims later in the game against Lewis Mayo?
I just think it highlights the fact that it is a game of chance when it comes to penalty calls. You get them, you don't get them, you get them against you, you don't get them against you. It is the most unexact science in football now in terms of penalties. It used to be you knew when a penalty would be given for handball if it was a deliberate act, but now it's like, or if your arm's away from your body, or you're in a funny position or a funny shape or whatever it is. It was given. Do you have an issue with that? No, because you need to expect these through the course of the season. I still think the circumstances by how that ball coming into the box came about was more concerning than anything. But again, Lundstrom jumped to obviously make a block on the ball. It's a deliberate act on his part. The fact that it hits his arm then makes him, makes it more easier or more readily available to award a penalty kick. And so it proves. And it wasn't really the start that you were looking for Rangers. And I have to say again, especially even after just 11 minutes, and in a first half when Rangers played, they looked akin to Bambi on ice. There is a real psychological issue. And if going a goal behind, honestly, at Rugby Park, on that surface, you can fear the worst that Rangers are not going to get back into it. I think they showed a lot of resolve and actually getting back into the game, how that came about, and then pressing home their advantage. But I think all in all, people will say, "Oh, that was a night when your arch rivals are scoring 7 goals." Well, you scored 5 last weekend. We're splitting hairs here. I think the fact that Rangers managed to get a win out of that game, you just pack your bags, put your kit in the hamper, jump back in the bus and come back to Ibrox with 3 points in the bag, and that's as good as it'll get.
Yeah, I think you're right there. It was very much a kind of win at all costs type of game. It was one of those, we kind of knew it was never going to be pretty, all the talk of the pitch and the lead up to the game, which I don't think helps that psychological impact that everybody talks about it. the manager always gets asked about it in the pre-match press conferences about the pitch, and it's kind of like, we all know about it, but we still want to talk about it to lead up to the game. But sooner or later,
we are where we are in Scottish football. I mean, at any point in time, if various teams shuffle around and get promoted and all this, you could half your pitches could be plastic pitches. Football wasn't designed to be played in plastic pitches, and I think you see that. I think you look at the kind of advantage that Kilmarnock have, and even Livingston have to a point. It's a difficult surface to play on, to keep your feet on. And I know people out there will be saying, "Oh, you make a lot of it, and it's the same for everybody." There are people in sport who have been able to play on surfaces, on one surface, and excel in one surface, like grass, and like the world of tennis, guys that could play in grass or hard courts, but could not play on clay, and and vice versa. And you look, I go back for if you want to pick on another sport. You look at somebody like Ivan Lendl, outstanding in every surface other than grass. Why? He just didn't have the confidence to plant his feet and play the shots that he could play or chase balls that he could chase. Now, if Ivan Lendl, who you would have to say is a far more capable sportsman and at a far higher level than some of the players that are playing in Scottish football, cannot get his mindset right, what chance have you got with footballers?
Yeah, I think that analogy with tennis is actually an interesting one, and it's one that Claude used in his pre-match press conference. There's a kind of interesting analogy there. Now, before we go on to discuss the second half, let me give a shout out to our friends over at Football Prizes. They're currently running a competition to win a dedicated Rangers shirt from Richard Goff. For more information on how to enter, please visit footballprizes.co.uk/product/golf. Now, Stuart, onto the second half, and one of the kind of major, I guess, pivotal points in it for me was Butland makes a save. I think it was on about the 50th minute mark. Now, for me, it was virtually a point blank save. Another example of just what a phenomenal goalkeeper he is, and kept us in that game. I think if we go 2-0 down at that point, it potentially proves too big a mountain to climb. Now, I'll take that view on because I know you've kind of seen the great goalkeepers of the past, and I just wanted your take on where does that save rank in the ever-growing list of wonderful saves by Rangers goalkeepers?
You get saves that are miraculous. You get saves that are spectacular. Saves that are absolutely unbelievable. I think equally you get saves that have a certain relevance or importance to them. You might not actually realise just how important they were until the end of the season. And I think Butland is a kind of goalkeeper that pulls out a save like that when it's needed. And again, as a goalkeeper, you're only doing your job. It was a great save at a crucial point in time because, like myself, if you don't have any confidence in Rangers bringing back a 1-goal deficit, you're going to struggle to see them coming back from 2 goals down. So it was a really important save. Goalkeepers make saves like that. It's the same as a defender making a clearance or a striker scoring a goal. It's what they do. That is their job. And you kind of become used to it, or you expect it from them. The fact that he is now, building a reputation of making great saves, for me, puts him up there even already with the likes of McGregor, with the likes of Chris Woods, with the likes of Gorham, in terms of the saves and the importance of those saves. And, and I think, again, he is a key member of that team. He certainly makes it easier for his defenders. He certainly makes it a hell of a lot easier for the strikers, because if he's making saves like that and they manage to score a goal, it tends to be that Rangers win the game. So all in all, it's been a really good season. You can see why, because of injuries and unavailability to other England goalkeepers, he's suddenly been talked about like somebody who's getting back into the England side. I know there'll be Rangers fans out there saying, "Oh no, we want to keep him fresh. We want to do this. We want to do the next thing." You have to realise that he's a footballer who will always want to play at the very highest level. And, he's represented England and Great Britain before. He wants to do the same again, and rightly so. So I think all in all, it's been an extremely good season for him and a pretty inspired signing.
Yeah, definitely. I actually think on the England point, I know it's veering away a bit from Rangers, but I think he should be in the running for not just getting in the England squad, but I think he should be right in the running for England number one. I've never been a big fan of Jordan Pickford, the current England number one, and I actually think Butland is, on current form at least, a better goalkeeper.
I think he's got more of a presence, and he's got more of a presence by his actions rather than his words. In the case of Pickford, who just seems to scream at people. You look at some of the goals that Everton have lost, and Pickford's actually made the goals look good, but only because positionally he's been so far out of touch and isn't even at the races with some of the goals that they've conceded. So all in all, Butland's having an outstanding season, and you would have to say that in a number of matches playing at a higher level, football-wise, in terms of who the opposition are, especially in European football, than Butland or several of the other candidates are. So, yeah, if he was suddenly picked as England number one, I wouldn't be surprised. Do I think he'll get that honour? Not really. I think he'll be doing well to get in the squad, but I think, again, the only way you can impress managers at international level is to actually be picked in the first place and then show them what you can do in training.
Yeah, I definitely think it'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on. Now, midway through the first half, we get the equalising goal. Yet again, when we need him most of all, the captain steps up with another free kick for his collection to grab the equaliser. Now, Stewart Tav's always been a player that's divided opinion amongst fans. He's always had his critics, but you can't really deny the importance of his contribution to the team in terms of when we need a goal. He's always the one to step up and drag the team through it, or even an assist. I'm thinking the Hearts game at Ibrox this season when we were 1-0 down and then we get to 1-1 and he also assists for the winning goal as well. Now, you've seen some of the great Rangers captains of the past, Gough, Butcher, Ferguson. Do you think Tav deserves to be spoken about in the same terms as those for you?
In a word, no. And out of those three you've listed there, you hadn't even mentioned John Gregg. I mean, compared to John Gregg, Tavernier isn't in the same library, let alone the same page. Come back when you've won 44 international caps, come back when you've won a European trophy, come back when you've won 2 trebles in 3 years, and come back for everything else you did off the pitch for Rangers at the darkest day in the football club's history. Don't get me wrong, he's been incredible, and in some respects, I've changed my mind on him. I don't know as a defender, but his contribution cannot be denied. But you do wonder, as a captain, it would still do the same for me, whether he was captain or not captain. And to that extent, I mean, he would still be taking free kicks and corners and making that sort of contribution. The fact of the matter is that, he is probably captain on good attendance, given the turnaround or turnover in players that Rangers have had over the years. Do I see him as being in a par with, Richard Gough? Nah, same again. I think you actually have to have seen these guys and know what these guys actually contributed to the club, and their status within that club to understand what a captain really does. And I just, I see his goals, I see his assists. I just don't see that presence from him.
I think he's grown into the role in terms of leadership. I actually think he's grown into that role in terms of leadership. He's not a shouter and a ranter and a raver, but I do think he's a lead by example type of captain.
He might well be, but then again, if you're the only guy, if you're the one guy that's been there for 10 years or however long it's been, then you do grow into the role because you've seen it all, you've done it all. And as I say, for me, he's more of a captain because of good attendance than anything else. Nobody will ever convince me that at another period in time somebody else couldn't have replaced him as captain and been as equally successful. If you look at his success rate, it's not exactly startling. Do you know what I mean? It's they've won trophies here and there, and he's happened to pick them up. But again, that's over a long period of time. It's not as if he's been picking 2 and 3 up a season. So, again, I hear what people say. I see what people write in the lights. Yeah, he's doing well for Rangers, but I don't think he could be, anywhere near the likes of previous Rangers captains in terms of his contribution to the club overall.
That's interesting. I think you could potentially counter that by saying that he's been unfortunate in terms of the period that he's played for Rangers. He's played in some pretty bang average or below average Rangers teams, to be honest. So he's kind of been unfortunate in that way as well.
You could. Hence the reason why he's played 400 games. You know what I mean? It's not that. I mean, honestly, you go back a season and a bit. Patterson was contributing just as much when he got a chance, and it was only through the manager at that point not really wanting to take a chance with Patterson that Patterson maybe didn't get the starts that he should have got. So, all in all, I think he's contributed. You cannot deny what he's done in terms of important goals and all the rest of it. But there are, I go back to other Rangers sides where you could actually have picked another, 5 players that were all captains on the pitch. You can't say that about this current Rangers side. Therefore, it's easy to pick him as captain. And his contribution all in, again, he's been crucial for Rangers at different times because he's had to carry the team almost and coming up with these goals. But, do I see a statue appearing outside Ibrox? Well, actually, it could happen. Who knows? But again, this is a generational thing. If you haven't seen other players playing, live and what their contribution is or is, it's a generational thing. 20-year-olds or 20-somethings or teenagers will think Tavernier is God. The fact that he hasn't been anywhere near an England team probably tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Like you say, I'm not lucky enough to have seen Greg or even Butcher or Goff, really, to be honest, in their prime. So I'm quite willing to kind of bow to your experience on that one. Now, on the winning goal by Tom Lawrence. Now, for me, this was an interesting goal because it comes from a fast counter-attack from a Rangers throw-in, which seemed to be a direct contrast from the ponderous build-up that we've seen in the opening game of the season at Rugby Park. Do you think this kind of perfectly captures the difference that the manager's made?
It does, but I also think it kind of typifies the type of player that Lawrence actually is. I always see him as being a spontaneous player. I'm just looking at some of the comments there. Tav has been the best right back in Scotland since he signed. It basically tells you the standard of footballers in the rest of Scotland. But going back to Tom Lawrence, I think he's got a certain level of fitness about him now, which means he can do things that earlier in his Rangers career he might not have been able to do because the fitness wasn't there. I think now he's got back to a certain level of fitness, then he can push himself a bit harder. He scored the goal. He didn't have time to think about what he was doing. He just drilled it into the corner. And to be honest, it was a goal. I mean, I was pleased to see, but it was a goal that kind of supports where Rangers are at. You go back to the previous Saturday. the first 2 goals that Rangers scored, Diamande basically scoring a goal with his left foot, having scored one the previous week with his right foot. I mean, that is a bonus that you have with a 2-footed player picking up the scraps in the edge of the box. Doesn't have to work on a 1 foot or the other. Can basically take a strike. The second goal that Rangers scored with Cortez, I mean, honestly, when that ball came to him, I have seen it so often in the past. It's almost like a grid from a spot the ball competition that flashes up in front of the stand, because you just have to pick a square to see where the ball's going to end up. And he took that goal brilliantly. And if his goal was good, then I think Tom Lawrence's goal was equally good against Kilmarnock. There was a positivity of that strike, a real, a real determination to hit that ball, hit it well, get it on target. And hence the reason why he was celebrating a goal.
Now, you mentioned the Hearts game last weekend. Now, games like the game on Wednesday night, they kind of tough. Games away, it's a night game, it's, difficult pitch. We know that Kilmarnock's historically a difficult place to go. So we knew it was going to be a challenge, but these are the kind of challenges that you need to overcome throughout a season if you want to win the league. Now, with that win and the manner of the win, was it in some ways more of a statement than the 5-0 win over Hearts last weekend?
A good point, actually. Yeah, I would. I think Rangers were bang up for the Hearts game. I think Hearts were coming in there as like, the sort of contenders, and Rangers put them in their place, basically knocked them out. It was kind of Mike Tyson versus all comers. They were decked within the first half in that game and never came back. I think there was a real intent and a real resolve about Rangers. They looked a different team in the second half. Never quite sure when these things happen what's going on in the dressing room, or what is said to the players. I think there were a few very, very subtle positional changes that were made in terms of the spaces that players were being asked to go and fill. And I think Lawrence was one of these players that was asked to push on and basically go to the ball, rather than waiting for the ball to come to him, for him to go to the ball and be more in a support role. Hence the reason why he scored the goal. So again, I think the second half performance was far better. And they actually, once they went 2-1 up, I don't think you could have questioned Rangers thereafter that we're actually going to hold on for 3 points.
Yeah, for me, that's been another massive positive with the new manager is he's got a real ability to affect games when he needs to, and he seems to know the exact moment when he has to kind of intervene, be it at half-time with a word or his substitutions. And it's something that, his predecessor just didn't have. Yeah,
but I think there's a few players though that are stepping up just now, and starting to look the player that you thought they were getting. I think Lawrence, if he stays fit and healthy, he could be such an important player over the next how many games it is. Simply because he is a talented footballer who can play the game. I think we're now seeing a player who is fit, healthy, and doesn't have it at the back of his mind that if he tries something, he's going to break, or his body's going to break. And that again is down to the mindset of different players. Some players need to be feeling 100%. No players are ever 100% fit, regardless of what they say. You've always got a toenail missing or a big bruise in the front of your shin or your thigh or something like that. But I think all in all, and I think as well, the manager has a level of trust in Lawrence that wasn't there previously. But I think Tom Lawrence is benefiting from a manager basically putting his arm around his shoulder and saying, "You can do this for me today," and he's gone out and he's proven that.
Yeah, I think his man management skills are second to none, and I think we're seeing that with kind of all the players, to be honest. They all seem to have bought into the kind of story that he's building and that he keeps kind of mentioning.
Just go back to a comment there, Ian Hibbert. Thanks for your comment, Ian. And basically saying the most consistent player at Rangers. How many games has he missed since signing? Thank you for backing up my point about good attendance. Anyway, you're saying, Brian.
Before we finish up, we'll give a quick preview for the Motherwell game. Obviously, we'll say this every week now, but massive game. 3 points are a must. Do you expect the manager to continue with his kind of rotational team selections? We obviously know that Cortez will be out. I think that'll be a massive miss. But Jack and Roof will come back into the squad. So what do you expect in terms of the team selection?
In terms of the opposition, I have seen Rangers, very good Rangers sides, outstanding Rangers teams struggle against Motherwell because they just come to Ibrox, they sit in, they're well organised, they take 25 minutes over each goal kick, they just slow players down or play down, and you really have to keep your wits about you so you don't lose a goal on the break. I think if Rangers get a goal ahead early or a couple of goals up, then they could produce the same kind of performance as they did against Hearts last week, which wouldn't go, would be quite useful in terms of goal difference and all the rest of it. Although I did make a point on radio in midweek that Celtic scoring 7 against Dundee is absolutely fine. In fact, they could score 17 in every game between now and the end of the season. And as long as Rangers win their matches and don't lose the old firm games, then it'll not matter a jot. So, there is not a bonus point in terms of goals scored. It's about getting yourself ahead, getting the win, taking the 3 points, and you move on to the next game. And between now and the end of the season, trust me, there will be a few like that. I think that a lot of people look at, teams, previous Rangers teams through sort of rose-tinted or light blue-tinted glasses and think it was all magical. You've seen Rangers having to get down into the trenches and really fight and battle for 1-0 victories here, there and everywhere. And at the end of the season, if you win a title, you've had a fantastic season, but you sometimes forget just how hard it's been. And again, I think all in all, the only thing that will be worrying, Philippe Clement just now is either whether they have 2 slices of toast for his supper or whether it will be 3 points by the end of play this weekend. That's the biggest thing, and as long as he can keep doing that, then he'll be happy.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned there that the tactics that Motherwell tend to adopt in terms of the time wasting and whatnot. The impressive thing, I think, is that this Rangers team don't seem to be affected by that. Previous Rangers team, you felt like teams like Motherwell could come to Ibrox and sort of drag us to their level with their time wasting and taking, 3 hours over a throw-in and a goal kick. But I don't get the sense like that from this Rangers team. I don't think this manager will allow our players to let themselves get dragged into that kind of tactic.
No, I think you might be right there, but equally, as I said, outstanding Rangers teams that were on their way to winning 9 titles in a row, you saw them getting bogged down in a hell of a fashion against Motherwell, simply because Motherwell picked players and selected players who made it difficult for their opponent. And you don't expect teams just to turn up and roll over because they've got an away day at Ibrox. But what you do expect is for Rangers to have a bit of quality and a bit of class to actually to break them down. And I think what we're seeing this season is that over a period of time, I thought that Rangers were really dependent on 1 or 2 players being asked to be creative, and if they didn't manage it, then the whole thing falls in its face. Whereas I think just now there's enough there are enough players stepping up and stepping forward in that team to say, right, if it doesn't work for you, give me a chance and I'll try and make it work. So it's a contribution overall that's welcome at this time of the season, and you're just looking for the same again week after week.
Yeah, they're definitely spreading the load around the team. It's not a case of give the ball to Alfie or Kent and see what they can do anymore. But before we finish up, Stuart, I'll take a score prediction if you've got one.
I would say if Rangers can win this one 2-0, they'll be happy. I don't see it being a goal fest. Probably they'll get scores 7 or 8, probably. But no, I think all in all, you take the win first and foremost just now, and that's what that puts pressure. I don't care what anybody says. You keep winning your games. Almost like if you win a game 1-0, it's psychologically it's more damaging to the opposition than you winning 4 or 5 because they think you're getting it easy then. Yeah. So I think I would happily take 2-0, and I think most of the Rangers players would take that as well.
Well, I missed the Hearts game last weekend, so I'm hoping for another 5-0.
Well, maybe you should miss this one again.
Well, maybe. Right, I think we've got time there. All that's left for me to do is thank my guest, Stuart. Thanks as always.
No worries, enjoyed it.
Thank you. As well as being live tonight, the show will be available on all podcasting platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Acast, Stitcher, and we'd ask that you leave a rating on your preferred podcasting app. We'll have Alex on tomorrow with his usual post-match reaction video, and Craig and Scott will have their press conference reaction video as well. And then we'll be back with the flagship pod tomorrow. Sunday evening, the flagship pod will be back to review all the action from the weekend's match. Until next time, bye for now.